Hi kids, it's Reverend James here with Children's Time. Merry Christmas! Ho ho ho! So glad to be with you Christmas Eve and celebrating this great festival together. For Children's Time tonight, I have a story. But before we get to the story, I just want to give a little explanation. So there's so many fun and exciting things that we do at Christmas time. There's of course school holidays. We have lots of yummy baking and treats to eat and chocolates. A big lunch or supper on Christmas or around Christmas Day. And then of course, presents. Everybody loves presents. Just like any birthday, giving gifts on Christmas is a huge part. But why do we get gifts if it's Jesus' birthday? Well, it's because Jesus himself is a gift. Jesus is the gift that was given at the first Christmas. But how can a person be a gift? You can't wrap yourself up and hide under a tree for days. Well, people are gifts by what they give each other and what they do for each other. We can make someone happy by giving a gift, a hug, a smile, a compliment. We can help someone. We can make someone know that they are loved and included. All these things are like gifts. Now, Jesus is our gift because God himself is given to us in Jesus. God was born as a baby, just like you and I, just like every other person was a baby. God became a human person like you and me in Jesus. So why would God choose to become human? Well, have you ever had a pet, like a cat or a dog maybe, who's really scared, maybe because of a thunderstorm or a stranger, and you can tell your dog, for example, is really scared? Don't you sometimes wish you could speak in the same language to tell him or her it's okay, that it's going to pass, that I'm here with you, and not to be scared? Or have you ever met someone who spoke a completely different language than you and you tried to talk to them, but it was so difficult? You just wish, oh, if only I could speak their language and communicate with them. Well, God has sent many messages to people throughout history, even before Jesus, through people like the prophets. And the people didn't seem to be listening or understanding God. So God became a human person so that through Jesus, God could teach us how to live in a way that would make everyone happy and everyone has what they need. God could show us just how much God loves us through Jesus by being born as a human being. So I'd like to share with you a story called The Giveaway. It tells the story of why God chose to become a human, why he was born as a baby in Jesus. But it tells us using the style and images of the First Nations peoples of North America. All the animals of the forest knew that human beings weren't living in unison with the rest of creation. The human beings were taking and saw themselves as separate, not part of the community of forest and creatures. So many of the animals decided that they would give a gift of themselves to help humanity see how they are loved and part of creation. Ultimately, Manitou, an Algonquin name for God or Creator, decides that he will be born as a baby to help show humanity the right way. Our own province, Manitoba, is named after Manitou. Manitoba means the land where God dwells, or the land of the Creator. And so here it is, the story, The Giveaway. The Giveaway, written and illustrated by Ray Buckley. There was a grove of trees where the forest grew thick. The trees had stood there for as long as anyone could remember, their roots intertwined so that nothing could affect one without affecting them all. They were known to the inhabitants of the forest, the four-leggeds and those who fly, as the old ones. In the middle of the old ones stood the oldest of them all, taller and broader than the others. If one stood beneath it, one could not see where its crown touched Father Sky, and smaller trees grew around its roots in the safety of its vastness. It was called the Ancient One, for it had known the Creator longest of all. It was to this grove that the creatures of the forest and the plains, the four-leggeds and those who fly, gathered for council. Each sent one speaker, the oldest and wisest of its kind. Snow fell thick on familiar paths, and each arrived in silence, waiting with the patience of those who have seen much. When the circle was complete, they stood, listening to their hearts. "They have lost their way," Whooping Crane said. "There is no pattern to their journey." Snow Goose nodded in agreement. "Lost their purpose," Deer Mouse said softly. "They do not gather seed. They do not know who they are." Tatanka, the buffalo bull, dropped his head low. "They take more than they need and give nothing back. They do not give away." "They do not see long distance," Eagle began. "They keep more than they can eat while some are hungry. They no longer know that they are connected." "They do not know that they are beautiful," Fox said sadly, her white coat blending with the snow. "They decorate themselves with stones and hide their spirits. They think that power is what they can hold on to," Old Beaver pondered. "They say this is mine and build lodges too large so that they themselves will appear big. They must make others small so that they will look big," Bear's deep voice answered. "In the end, they must destroy themselves or others. They have lost their names and do not know who they are." Grandmother Turtle, who was the last to arrive, made her way slowly to the center of the council. She lifted her head so she could see all who gathered beneath the old ones. Her voice was barely audible. "We must give away ourselves to them. We must speak to them in soft voices. We must remind them of who they are." She paused, lowering her head into her shell. Then suddenly she lifted her head as high as her neck would allow. "I will give them my shell," she said with certainty. "I will come with no protection, and they can use my shell to adorn themselves." Around the circle, the council was silent. The wind did not blow through the trees. Not a single branch on the old ones fluttered. The forest was still. As Grandmother Turtle began her walk back to the empty spot in the circle, "I will teach them the patterns of life," Whooping Crane said slowly. "Snow Goose and I will remind them of the seasons. I will teach them to gather seeds so that no one need be hungry," Deer Mouse began. "I will give them what I've stored." Eagle searched the sky night without lowering her head and said, "I will give them my feathers. Perhaps if I cannot fly, they will not feel so small." Tatanka, the bull buffalo, stood with his legs squarely on the earth. "I will give them my flesh to sustain them and my skin to warm them. I will give myself away." Each council member in turn rose to speak of the gift, that most costly portion of themselves that each would give away. When the circle was complete, a new voice was heard. In the shadow of the Ancient One stood the Creator. "O children," the Creator began softly, "you will give yourselves away, but they will not know that. They will say, 'See what they've taken,' and think that they have made themselves larger." For a moment the Creator paused. "It is I who must give myself away. I must give away my protection and come vulnerable to their lodges. I must choose to become small so that they can choose to know me large. I must give away my name so that they can know their name." The Ancient One had stood silent. The sound of his voice had not been heard in many winters. Creator, how can this be? How can the great mystery become small? Creator stood beneath the Ancient Ones. The shadow of the great tree became light, and the grove of the Old Ones became full of the presence of the Creator. A baby will be born. He will be the son of the great mystery. He will be born not where the two-leggeds are gathered, but among the four-leggeds and those who fly. He will bring light into confusion. He will bring hope into despair. He will bring love, and his name will be great. The Ancient One began to tremble, and those who fly left its old branches. The grove of the Old Ones moved in its quake. Creator, what can I, whose name speaks only of my age, give away to the great mystery become baby? What can I do from my grove in the forest? The Creator turned toward the Ancient One. The voice of the Creator was low. You will be his support. You will be his place of rest. You will hold his body. You will hold him up in the beginning and in the end. And the Ancient One wept, partly for joy and partly for sorrow. The end. So we know lots of Christmas carols, Silent Night, Away in a Manger, but there's a really special one that was actually written by a Canadian, before Canada was even a country. John de Brebeuf was one of the first people to teach Christianity in North America, way back in the 1600s, almost 400 years ago. He wrote a Christmas hymn to teach the Christmas story to the Huron people, who he was living with at the time. And he used images and ideas that explore what it would have looked like if Jesus had been born here in North America around that time. So instead of shepherds, he wrote about hunters hearing the song of the angels. Instead of a manger, Jesus is born in a lodge of tree bark. And instead of three kings, chiefs come to give Jesus gifts. It's one of my favorite Christmas hymns. So check this out.
'Twas in the moon of winter time, when all the birds had fled, that mighty Gitche Manitou sent angel choirs instead. Before their light the stars grew dim, and wandering hunters heard the hymn. Jesus, your King is born. Jesus is born. In excelsis Gloria. Within a lodge of broken bark, the tender babe was found. A ragged robe of rabbit skin enwrapped his beauty round. And as the hunter braves drew night, the angel's song rang loud and high. Jesus, your King is born. Jesus is born. In excelsis Gloria. The earliest moon of winter time is not so round and fair as was the ring of glory upon that helpless infant there. The chiefs from far before him knelt, with gifts of fox and beaver pale. Jesus, your King is born. Jesus is born. In excelsis Gloria. O children of the forest free, O sons of Manitou, that holy child of earth and heaven is born today for you. Come kneel before the radiant boy who brings you beauty, peace, and joy. Jesus, your King is born. Jesus is born. In excelsis Gloria. In excelsis Gloria.